What's up, you guys? So in this video, I wanted to discuss our next body system, the respiratory system. The respiratory system is the collection of organs in our body that helps us to respire or breathe. This is essential because the cells in our body require oxygen that we get from the air to properly make cellular energy. We also need to be able to get rid of the carbon dioxide in our body, which is a waste product produced by the cells while making the cellular energy. But what organs make up the respiratory system, and how does this system work exactly? Well, suppose you were to take a deep breath. As you inhale, the air could enter through your body, either through your mouth or through your nose. Let's suppose for this example that the air enters through your nose. As it passes into your nose, the air will be filtered, moistened, and warmed. Debris, or other particles in the air, are filtered out as they get captured by the nose hairs and mucus in the nasal cavity. The mucus, which is produced and secreted by your sinuses, also serves the purpose of moistening or humidifying the air before it passes into the delicate air sacs within the lungs. Additionally, the air is warmed as it passes by thin blood vessels or capillaries in the nose that circulate through warm blood coming from the core of the body. After the nasal cavity, the air will then pass through the pharynx or throat. If you recall, the pharynx was also briefly mentioned during our video on the digestive system because it also is continuous with the mouth or oral cavity. It is for this reason that people who accidentally laugh while drinking water might end up with water coming out of their nose. After the pharynx, the air will pass through the larynx residing just in front of the esophagus. The larynx has also been called the voice box because it contains within it two folds of tissue that make up the vocal cords. During puberty in males, the larynx will typically drop forward, causing the vocal cords to stretch, which in turn causes the man's voice to get deeper. As the larynx moves forward, it might create a bulge in the neck known as the Adam's apple. The opening of the larynx is also attached to a small flap known as the epiglottis. The epiglottis is typically kept open to allow for air to pass into the larynx without difficulty. When it is time to swallow food, however, the epiglottis will cover up the opening of the larynx to prevent food from going down the wrong pipe, as they say. This is why we temporarily stop breathing when it is time to drink a beverage or swallow our food. Once the air eventually passes through the larynx, it will then enter a long tube known as the trachea. The trachea, also considered our windpipe, is a long tube running down our neck in front of the esophagus and into our chest cavity. Unlike the esophagus, the trachea is lined with rings of stiff cartilage to keep the tube from collapsing inwards. The inner lining of the trachea also produces mucus to further moisten the air and to catch any remaining debris that was missed by the nasal cavity. In addition to the mucus, the trachea is also lined with these cellular extensions called cilia. The cilia beat in unison to move the mucus out of the windpipe and up towards the pharynx, where the mucus can either be coughed up or swallowed into the esophagus. After the air has reached the end of the trachea, it will then diverge down two bronchi. Bronchi are tubes that branch off at the base of the trachea in the chest cavity, with one bronchus carrying air towards either lung. The bronchi then branch off into bronchioles, which ultimately terminate at the alveoli. Alveoli are tiny air sacs within our lungs. These alveoli have very thin membranes that are only 1 cell thick and are surrounded by capillaries. These capillaries, which also have thin walls and have blood running through them, have the ability to do something neat with the air in our alveoli. The blood in these capillaries is generally very oxygen poor and carbon dioxide rich, while the air in the alveoli is the opposite, oxygen rich and carbon dioxide poor. This allows oxygen to naturally diffuse into the blood from the air in the alveoli, and for carbon dioxide to naturally diffuse into the alveoli from the blood in the capillaries. Once oxygen has been dropped off and carbon dioxide has been picked up, the air then passes up through all of the organs of the respiratory system until it is eventually breathed out of the body. Now you might be asking yourself, what part of the body actually controls our breathing? Is it your mouth? Is it your lungs? It turns out that our breathing is actually controlled by a muscle lying just underneath our lungs called the diaphragm. The diaphragm can be found separating the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity towards the bottom of the ribcage. The diaphragm works by altering the overall pressure in your chest, which in turn causes your lungs to either inflate or deflate with air. When the diaphragm contracts, it will move downwards, thereby decreasing the amount of pressure in your chest cavity. This will allow the air from outside of your mouth or nose to naturally move into the lungs through the respiratory tract. When the diaphragm relaxes, the muscle will rise, thereby increasing the amount of pressure in the chest cavity. This increase of pressure will push the air out of your lungs, causing you to exhale. To summarize this video, the air that you inhale will first move into your nose or nasal cavity, then into your pharynx, then into your larynx, then into your trachea, then through your bronchi, and then into your lungs. If you wanted to be more specific, you could say that the air moves from your bronchi into the thinner branching tubes known as bronchioles, and then finally into the air sacs known as the alveoli. In the alveoli, oxygen is exchanged with carbon dioxide through diffusion with the capillaries, and the carbon dioxide-rich air will then move up back through the respiratory system until it exits out of the body through the nose or mouth. And this whole process is controlled by the movement of the diaphragm muscle located at the base of the chest. That's it for this video. I hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos to come.